Hi, I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Rihanna, and welcome back to Fresh Off the Broke.
Fresh Off the Broke is about personal experiences when I'm Asian American in a predominantly white community, Asian media, and Asian pop culture in general. Race has always been a sensitive topic. Every day there are debates over race. With our podcast, we intend to shed light on the experiences of first-generation Asian immigrants, not put them on a pedestal.
We understand that race isn't everything, but there should be an acknowledgement of people of color, the knowledge gap, and the racial divide that will ideally be broken. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the episode. Today, we're going to be talking about what it's like to be a third culture kid.
In case you're unfamiliar with what a third culture kid, here's a brief rundown. So, third culture kids typically refer to kind of like second generation immigrants and beyond, someone who's usually pretty detached from what would be their quote unquote native background, and like they're detached in the sense that like maybe they're not super well connected or well versed in it for whatever reason. It could be because of immigration or because of assimilation into the community that their family now is in or that they are now in. I guess it like kind of depends on the situation. And the reason why it's third culture is because so you have I'm assuming the first culture would be like your family's cultural background, and the second culture is the culture of where you now are. So say you're a Chinese American. So I guess the first culture would be Chinese, and the second culture would be American. And then the third culture is kind of like Chinese American because you are, in a sense, a mix of both because super you're not like super integrated into either culture because you didn't grow up in say China, and you might have grown up in America, but you grew up in America like under the context of like a Chinese family. And so you're a third culture kid just because like you're kind of like a little bit of like a mix of all these things. And a lot of the times, not always, but if you're like a second gen, third gen, fourth, and so on, your family has probably assimilated into the country, like wherever that they've immigrated to. And so the kid, because you know, like they might have to learn English or like whatever language they have to learn in school, they start developing or yeah, they start developing skills that are like more connected to like where they moved to, and then like because their parents and like their family is able to communicate or like is well versed in like the quote unquote local culture, that there's just a detachment, right? Like they're not super connected to like the original culture per se.
That liminal space, that gray area
Yeah,
culture.
yeah, for sure.
And just a little brief history on the term third culture kid. So it was initially coined by researchers John and Ruth Useem in the 1950s. And the original context that they used third culture kid in was to refer to the children of American citizens who were living abroad and working abroad.
And I mean, I guess if you think about it in some ways, first generation immigrants can also be third culture kids.
Yeah, for
depending
sure.
on the age that they immigrated with their family. Or, I mean, well, first gen, because if this is just something I guess I have in my mind, because if, at least to me, like, if you immigrate and then you immediately have a kid, I feel like they're still kind of first gen adjacent.
Yeah.
versus if the family immigrated and then kind of, I don't know, worked around,
Yeah, yeah.
they settled in, and then they had the kid, then it's a little different.
Mhm.
I mean, this all semantics, like, but just a thought. Let us know what you think. So I kind of alluded to this, or maybe you heard traces and bits of it that felt a little familiar. But when it comes to being a third culture kid, if you are one, or maybe you know one or some, something that is pretty heavily associated with being a third culture kid is college essays. And I feel like this is probably a really specific reference or a really specific experience. Because the thing is, Rihanna and I aren't even American.
Mhm.
But anyway, when you apply to universities, colleges, what have you, sometimes you're required to write essays. And in America, they have to write the Common App essay, where it's like a general personal statement kind of essay. It could be about anything, I'm pretty sure. It just has
Mhm.
to be interesting or like say something about
Yeah.
you. And then you write your supplementary essay or like whatever else that you have to do for whatever school that you're applying to.
Mhm.
And so one thing that happens a lot is third culture kids and second gen, first gen, just like immigrants and children of immigrants,
Mhm.
they this like running joke of them writing essays about being a third culture kid and
Mhm.
talking about their journey, like navigating these two cultures that they grew
Mhm.
up in, like not really being their family's culture, but also not really being the culture that's here.
Mhm. Not fitting in with anybody.
Yeah, and the thing is, even beyond college essays, even just, I guess, essays in school, this is something that if you had the chance to, you probably have written an essay like that, or
Mhm.
you've heard an essay like that, because Rihanna and I have written essays like this.
For sure.
I think it's a rite of passage, really,
For sure.
because I've written an essay. Because the reason why I wrote it was because when I was applying for something, it wasn't for a school, but I was applying for something and they had all these prompts and you had to answer them. And one of the prompts had something to do with identity. And so I tried to write this sentimental, kind of like philosophical. I don't mean this in like a super academic way. I just mean like I was trying to write a deep essay about
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
about cultural identity and I guess how I perceived it growing up and then how I perceive it now, or like how I apply it in my daily life or
Mhm.
my career or whatever. So like that's something that I've done.
Mhm.
What about
I
you?
mean,
Have you written? I feel like everyone has.
yeah. Um, I think especially, well, okay. When I was back in high school, I think I would write things like this, the whole thing about not belonging here, but not belonging there, or, being that not fitting in, kind of being in that liminal space. Um, in
I
high
feel like it's
school,
also just like a fun kind of
it's
poetic.
easy. Not easy,
I feel
but
like it's
like
kind of fun to write about.
it is. Like it's something that you have a personal connection to, you're living it. So it's not like you have to really think about describing like the situation.
Hmm.
So in high school, as me and Tiffany have said time and time again on this podcast, our high school was very predominantly white.
Oh,
Um
really?
yeah, surprise if you didn't notice. But this was like my go-to thing if I needed a quick mark booster because, like being one of the only visible minorities, or especially in like the classes that I was in, like a white teacher who goes to a school that tries to pride itself on being, like woke and accepting. it it's an easy mark. No offense, but it is an easy mark. I think now that I'm in university, or I'm, pursuing higher education, um I find myself
Language.
writing a lot more like proper essays and things on this topic, which is good, but also it's a lot harder, I'd say, because now that we're in, like a bigger educational institution, like there's more third culture kids with you, so you gotta work harder to write that essay, or else it's gonna be like bad compared to
Yeah, for
everyone
sure.
else, because
I've
you're
seen,
not the only person anymore.
yeah, one thing that comes with the running joke about third culture kids or kids of color writing about, because the thing is, you don't have to be an immigrant to be a third culture person. You can
Yeah.
just be what's the word? I don't know, I don't know what the word is that I want to use, but someone that is a different race than what the majority of,
Mhm.
like, I don't want to say a minority, but I
Yeah,
guess an
yeah.
underrepresented group wherever
Uh-huh.
you are.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And then you could be a third culture kid. And so something that comes with the running joke of that is people think it's boring and it's overdone. And I mean, it is overdone. And so they usually advise that you don't write something like that for your Common App essay, because everyone is going to write that for your Common App
Yeah.
essay.
Yeah.
And there have been there's just like jokes in general where people say, like, oh, like an admissions officer reading their 50th essay about not belonging or
Mm.
whatever. And the thing is, it's not just this essay topic. There are a bunch of them that have been brought up, such as when it comes to med school, some people say that an overdone story is saying that, or not even just a story, it's like a reason. Uh, an overdone thing to say for why you want to be a doctor, or like why you want to do med school, because you want to help people. Like that's something that they're really tired of hearing.
Mm.
There's also the one, what was it? I think it was like someone in their family got sick and then it made them
Yeah,
want,
yeah.
or someone in their family is a doctor or something like that. There's like certain overdone things that people consider overdone. There's like something about sports and injuries. I remember that one. But yeah, like this isn't the only topic that people think is overdone. It's like
Mhm.
one of many.
Mhm. According to all the cheesy like rom-com, teenage rom-com movies, it's the overdone essay would be like about your first love.
Do you think people actually write that?
I pray to God they don't. But I guess some people do. Well, you know what? Actually, I have a friend who had to go through this like process of like writing these essays for the places he was applying to, and he did it on his first love, but he's gay. So his was about like, like accepting who he is as a person, especially
Mm-hmm.
because he comes from a culture that's not very accepting of gay people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that in that sense, then probably it's a common thing, or like something that people do and it's not cringe when it's about first love. But I guess some people just don't have, some straight people. I'm thinking only of um was it To All the Boys I've Loved? No, 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 no. What's the other one? Kissing Booth?
That's a movie, yeah.
Is Kissing Booth the one where she did her essay about a guy?
Did she do it about a guy?
I think so. Or like
Can
it
you
was
can
about
you
how
double
like,
check? I don't remember.
okay, brief pause in this episode while I check. But it's not gonna be a pause for you guys because I'm just gonna cut this out. I don't think it was explicitly about her first love, but the question was, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I swear she was talking about the guy at first, and then she like deleted all of it and then redid it, being all cheesy.
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I just remember like because we watch Kissing Booth together. We watch all of the movies together. Fun
Yeah.
fact for the podcast.
So
Um,
sometimes we watch cheesy movies as a
pick me
de-stressor
up.
or as a
Yeah,
just to be a little silly.
yeah, we need it sometimes.
Mhm.
Um,
If you hate, here's the thing. I feel like to each their own, right? When in
mhm.
terms of like movie genres, music, whatever. I I feel like, if you're like a super big mega hater of rom-com, you're a little bit of a party pooper. They're not
Honestly,
supposed to
yeah.
be serious.
Yeah, when people are like, "Oh,
I
it's
don't
so
like all
inaccurate."
rom-coms.
Yeah, it's like it's supposed to be fun and like almost like fantasy in a way because you really think this is something that's gonna happen.
Yeah, they're supposed to be dumb and unoriginal.
Yeah, that's the beauty in it.
Hmm.
This is coming from two rom-com connoisseurs, so
The the 2000s was a big time for rom-com.
uh-huh.
Tell us what your favorite rom-coms are.
We want to
We
know so we can
Yeah,
watch
maybe we'll
them.
watch it.
Mhm. I'm curious. What is your experience, or do you even think you're a third culture kid? If so, why? Oh my gosh, that's actually perfect. This is the essay
I
topic.
love.
This is the application question.
Are you secretly an admissions officer
I
trying to
I
recruit
cannot
me?
disclose that information on a recorded um audio tape. I cannot confirm nor deny that. So,
This isn't recorded.
oh, well then in this case, insert a bunch of bleeps here.
Wow, I love the way you asked me that. I guess the short answer is I guess no matter my opinion, I am. Like objectively, I am.
Mhm.
Just because, like Chinese Canadian. But I think that I was pretty fortunate to be really connected with my culture. The thing is, I think I might be a reverse third culture kid because growing up, my parent and now my parents can't speak English, and so we always spoke Cantonese at home. I've brought this up a lot, talking about the whole thing where my I didn't start speaking or learning English until I went to kindergarten, and then my
Mhm.
kindergarten teacher was super racist
Mhm.
and all that. And so the reason why I think I'm a reverse third culture kid is because, so for one, I learned English when I started school, and then I wasn't really ever super exposed to Western pop culture things. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I watched TV and read books, and reading and watching TV were really big ways that I learned English.
Mhm.
Thank you, SpongeBob. The shows like I don't know, like SpongeBob, iCarly, like all the just stuff that we watched growing up, right?
Mhm.
Stuff like that taught me English, reading novels or children's books helped me learn English. And then, but I wasn't super exposed to Western pop culture in the sense that I just growing up, I didn't know what Forrest Gump was. I didn't know
Mhm.
really. I mean, I'm trying to think. Uh, like Jim Carrey. Just, I mean,
Mhm.
I probably knew he existed, but like, I just wasn't really aware of Western pop culture things like that. Like Harry Potter, that took a long time. I think I was conscious of what Harry Potter really was when I was in like the fourth or fifth grade because I had a friend that was reading it at the time. Stuff like that. And so I was in a way kind of detached from Western culture for
Mhm.
a big chunk of my life. Not in a detached in the sense that I feel like I don't belong with them because I mean, I I guess it can go both ways because I mean I went to super white schools, but they were really racist. So in a way, I didn't feel like I belonged because they were racist, but I didn't feel like I didn't belong in the sense that I felt like I wasn't worth I wasn't allowed to be in that school. Like that like
Mm,
fortunately I never felt that way.
mm,
I I didn't feel as if I didn't deserve to be at those schools. I was just
mm,
kind of I definitely had hmm, I was frustrated with those people because it kind of I guess to put it in kid terms, they were being mean for no reason.
mm, mm,
And then in recent years, I've kind of tried to make an effort to close my knowledge gap in terms of Western pop culture. 'Cause, I mean, general Western cultural things, like, I don't know, etiquette or just like stuff like that. That's just, I guess, learned as you live here or
uh-huh.
as you interact with people. Because it wasn't like I went to schools that were super Asian or super Chinese. It wasn't like I lived in Chinatown or something. I mean, I went to Chinese school, but in recent years, I've tried to watch things, or I guess like learn and catch myself up to bring myself up to speed
Mm,
so that I can understand references. You know, like it's not a super big deal. I don't feel ashamed of it. It's just like things like so I don't know stuff like really famous bands like Green Day or whatever.
mhm,
Sorry to say or
mhm.
whatever to people that matters to.
Mm,
Those names didn't really mean anything to me for the longest time, and I didn't even really know what they were, like Daft Punk, groups like that, and then a
mhm,
lot of movies, Inception, uh, what's a oh, some honestly, some rom-coms too,
mm.
stuff like that. Just I missed out on a lot of it, or I just like wasn't aware of
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff, and so in recent years, I've tried to bring myself up to speed, and now I'm kind of just like I guess you could say I have the know-how of both sides now. Because I mean, I always really I liked watching shows from like Asia or uh North America or just like the West. But in terms of I guess like super culturally significant, oh, like The Godfather, like that was something that
Mm,
I watched that movie this summer, and I was like, oh, I get it now. If before you asked me if I've seen The Godfather, I would say, oh, obviously I'd say no, but also it wouldn't really mean anything to me. That was just a name.
uh-huh.
Yeah, I was a reverse culture, reverse culture kid, reverse third
Reverse
culture
culture.
kid. How about you?
Before I answer that, we're definitely trademarking the term reverse culture kid. Just saying.
Reverse culture kid. We could put that on a shirt.
Yeah, I'm down.
Let us
Let
know
us
if
know if
you
you
buy
want
it.
that.
I
Okay.
can see us having cool merch.
Yeah, reverse culture kid's kind of sick.
Yeah, reverse third
By
culture.
kind, I mean
Wouldn't it be
very
so?
sick.
It'd be so cool.
Yes.
You know the oh shoot, I don't know if I should say it because then the idea is out there and we don't have a
Subscribe to our Patreon to hear the idea. I think that I have a very, like, I wouldn't even say it's like an experience. I guess it is. Um,
invalidating yourself before you start.
for real. So my parents didn't really instill this like need for me to understand like Filipino culture, especially as a kid. My parents are very much the types of people who were like, we moved to Canada, so you can be Canadian. Like, you are Canadian. You're gonna eat Canadian food, which whatever that is.
Poutine,
For real, which
beaver
poutine is good.
tail.
Yeah. But yeah, they didn't really like not expose, but they didn't have this like emphasis on needing to understand like their culture, aka my culture. um so I think I didn't really feel like a third culture kid, or I guess I technically wasn't even one until I like became older and realized like, hey, like I'm so detached from this aspect of my life, but like that makes me feel weird. um and I want to know more. And as I got older, like, you know, my parents, like, I still understand Tagalog. Like, I still eat Filipino food, whatever, not completely detached.
Delicious.
Um, yes,
I love
but
Filipino food.
period. Um, yeah, there was just never that like need instilled by them. So it came when I was older and I realized like I want to be able to connect to my culture more. But I'm in this gray area where like people don't see me as Filipino, um, if they are Filipino themselves. But here, like I'm very much not a Westerner, or I don't look like one. Therefore I
Yeah,
am
yeah,
not
yeah.
one. So, you know, there is that gray area. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, like it's weird. It's a weird time. But luckily this podcast has helped me get closer, given me like
Aww.
more reason to, you know, research and like even like in a
Crying.
scholarly way, like just learning more. So I'm very thankful for that, and
Mm-hmm.
helps me connect with my culture, which is actually like the perfect segue.
Aww. That's
But yeah,
so cute.
thank you.
I feel that way too. I like that. I mean, we've probably said this a million times. I really like this kind of space or this
Uh-huh.
whatever this bubble is that we've created.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a safe space.
Mm-hmm. Apologies for, I guess, interrupting your segue, but I have a question.
Yeah.
So, you have you ever, say, like when you've gone back, gotten a comment that you don't look or sound or act like a local?
Oh, for sure. Like people, you can just tell by looking at me. Um, and partially that's just because like I guess I am pretty like pale compared to I used to be a lot paler when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. And also like I don't look Filipino. Um, I've said this a bunch
Oh
of
yeah,
times, but
insert all the people
yeah,
that
like
tell Rihanna she's Chinese.
yeah, people think I'm any Asian before Filipino. Mostly people guess like East Asian, any of those, um, or Viet. People don't think I'm Filipino. So even in like in especially in the Philippines, people like know that I'm not from there. Um, and yeah, like I for sure like people just assume I don't speak just by looking at me. Um, so yeah, yeah. It's very obvious, so I don't blame
Mm-hmm.
them. Also, the last time I went to the Philippines, I had dyed hair, which made me stand out even more.
Right, right, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So just like the
Wait, but
combination
didn't
of
you dye your hair in the Philippines
I
though?
did. I did. But even before I dyed my hair, people knew. So
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, I get that, yeah.
yeah. And I found that it was weird. Maybe it's just a confidence thing and I had been there for longer, but I felt like I was more comfortable after I dyed my hair.
Mm-hmm.
With like sticking out in a crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like I stuck out more before I dyed my hair, but I think that's just because I was more comfortable with where I was.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, weird.
Mhm. I've gotten that comment once. It really bothered me actually at the
Mm,
time because so something a comment that I get a lot when I go back, or just like sometimes when I meet people here,
mm,
meet Cantonese speaking adults. So adults in the sense that they are of, I guess, my parents' age range. They say like, "Oh wow, you like your Chinese is really good. Like I wouldn't have been able to get that you were a what's the word? Like a Chinese Canadian." Like that's not the
mm,
comment I'm talking about that
mm,
like bothered me.
mm.
But one time, I think I brought this up in a podcast like 40 episodes ago or something. But when I was back in China, my uncle, yeah, one time he just randomly said to me that he thought that it was super obvious. Like he said something like, "One look at you and they know that you're not from here," and it kind of
Mm.
hurt my feelings because I was like, "What do
Dang.
you mean?"
Yeah, like
Like
what?
I don't mean it hurt my feelings in the sense like, "What do you mean I'm not in? I'm not with the in crowd or whatever." It wasn't like that. It was just why did he say that?
Um, um,
I didn't think I mean, the thing is, from a biological sense, we definitely would look different just because we drink different water, we ate different food, we like
yeah,
breathe different air.
yeah.
It definitely makes a difference. But yeah, his comment kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, damn, why did you have to say that? That wasn't very nice. And then I asked him like, "Oh, what do you mean?" And he was making a comment about my outfit. But the thing is, I thought that I was wearing a very normal outfit that anyone could have worn anywhere, or that someone would have worn in China as well. It was just like I was wearing it was like a kind of like a tank top, but not like the super strappy kind, and it was like a
Mm,
red and white striped tank top, like kind of loose, there's on the looser side, and then I was wearing like black shorts, and I think like a black cap. And the thing is, I've seen people dress like that. So was he trying to call me a poser or something? I don't
poser.
know. It was just a
What a comment to say.
yeah. What do you mean? One look at me and I don't look like I'm from
Yeah, like
here.
what?
Make it sound like I'm embarrassing myself. It's all good. Like I don't and didn't take that personally. I just thought it was a weird comment.
That's so diss. Not even diss. It's just so like you didn't need to say that. You didn't say it like that either.
Yeah, I mean, this uncle is also one of my relatives that is very, excuse me. I have certain relatives that very much often make unwelcome comments to
Mm,
anyone that comes across them,
I
and
see.
people don't really like them for that.
Mm,
Not in a brutal honesty way, just in a that was kind of rude and
mm,
unnecessary way.
mm. For those of you who feel like a third culture kid and you feel like you're just stuck in that gray area of you don't belong here and you don't belong there are ways to connect with your culture at your own pace as well. And like, I think personally, a big barrier to reconnecting was that I was embarrassed.
Oh, I
So,
think that's a really common thing.
yeah, yeah. So, like, these are also ways that, like, you can do it privately. You don't have to be out here taking classes, whatever. Like that is something you could do. Like maybe at your school or in your local community or even online. Um, but you know,
Duolingo.
there's a lot of what, yeah, like Duolingo, like no one need to know about that. Like you can be doing Duolingo on your own. Um, but yeah, there's so many different ways. Like for me, it was this podcast. Not to
You need to
be
stop saying that or I'm gonna start crying.
and connected to this podcast, maybe for people who are listening, you know, like YouTube, watching videos of maybe about your culture specifically, or just watching people who are from your culture. Just the internet in general, connecting with different people on like maybe it's a Discord server, maybe it's like an online forum, different online chatting places, you know.
Hmm.
There's so many different ways. Um
Yeah.
yeah. Do you have any in mind?
I think before I answer that question,
Mm,
for people that are embarrassed or ashamed right now, definitely like it's easier said than done. Actually, not easier said than done. I just want you to know that it's not something to be ashamed of.
uh-huh.
I don't I don't want you to feel like you are like less than a like you're not a proper
Insert
whatever
culture
culture you
here.
come
Yeah.
from.
Yeah.
I don't want you to feel like you're not a proper like there's a set standard that you have to be
Yeah.
because it's circumstances, right? There's a
Yeah.
reason why you're detached. And I mean you're also making the effort now.
Exactly.
So I 100% encourage the private way, the public way, do whatever
Anyway.
whatever works for you. You could do both at the same time.
Yeah. And like there's
But I
for
guess
me, there's like an even bigger level of respect there that you are old enough to say, like, to acknowledge, hey, I am detached from, you know, my roots. I want to learn more. Like, it's so much harder to learn about it than to be born into it.
hmm. Yeah, don't beat yourself up. And also, yeah, don't beat yourself up when you're learning if you don't get it the first time.
Mhm,
Do you think take a lot of time, especially if you're trying to learn a language?
for sure.
We are cheering you on.
We
Oh my
are.
gosh, I would love if anyone told us about their learning journey.
Yeah, that would be,
Yeah.
we'd love to
And I'll
hear.
share my Western culture learning journey. That's so funny. Ways that people can connect. There's a lot of different ways, you know. There's this kind of applies to a lot of different things, but there's like the buddy system,
Mm.
like an accountability part. You know how some people have a buddy to go to the gym
Uh-huh.
with?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
could potentially, if possible, learn with someone, whether that's like someone that's your friend, same
Mhm,
culture, different culture, you can help each other practice, or you can find a language learning buddy online. Those exist.
mhm,
Where you can text each other to practice speaking your both of your target languages, or I guess it would be a shared target language.
mhm.
I've definitely seen, I think it's so cute when you have those like language learning.
Yeah.
There are apps for it as well, I'm pretty sure.
I think Hello
Because
Talk
I've
is
seen,
one.
yeah, I think so. And then beyond languages, or beyond just like learning to speak, you know, one thing that I think is a fun way of learning, you could use music or
Ooh.
media in the sense that, so Rihanna kind of brought it up when she's talking about YouTube, but
Mm.
you could watch, I mean, hey, if you're Korean, or let's say, you could maybe watch some K-dramas
Mhm.
because obviously you're not gonna watch it and then immediately absorb every single, like you're just gonna know all the words,
Yeah.
but it's, I guess, a fun and immersive way to learn. And also, I know that Vicky, yeah, Viky, no, Viki,
Mm.
they have a cool thing. I don't think it applies to every episode unless they have developed it since, because I haven't used it in a few years. But they had this cool thing where beyond subtitles, there was also kind of like a language learning caption feature kind of thing
Oh,
where
that's
you
cool.
can like learn as you're watching. And at the time that I was pretty regularly watching stuff on Viki,
Mm. Oh.
it was, I think it was limited. I don't know how open it is now, but that's
Mm.
not something worth checking out.
Mm. That's
You can
cool.
also, because I think the fun thing with music is music transcends language, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something can just be catchy to you, and then you sing it or whatever. And so you
Yeah.
can find songs that you really like. You can learn the lyrics to those songs, and then you
Mm-hmm.
can learn what those words mean.
Mm-hmm.
You can also, and then just beyond language, you could maybe learn, practice cooking
Mm-hmm. That's a
or a
really good one.
craft, because stuff like that comes a lot from the heart, and it's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of like manual labor, physical effort.
Mm-hmm.
You can make a dish from your childhood, or even just a dish that you look up and think is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
A little challenge.
I
Trying to think
think
of,
like food is just such a wholesome like culture connector.
I know, I love food. Yeah, food
Yeah.
definitely transcends.
Food really brings
Mm-hmm.
people together.
Yeah.
It's not something that you should be embarrassed by or you should feel like guilty because of. Um, and there's no judgment in, what we just said, like reconnecting with your culture. It's so much harder to do that, especially if you're older. Just because, like socially, you've just been judged for not fitting into either place for your whole life at that point.
Which you don't deserve.
Exactly. And that can make it really hard. And you need to remember that it takes a lot of it takes a lot of balls to do that. And it takes a lot of like effort and time and energy. But it's something that is very good and will bring a lot of like satisfaction to you, especially if you feel like uneasy because you are this third culture kid. You are like you don't really fit in. You're in that gray area, which you shouldn't be ashamed of.
Yeah, you
TLDR,
should
don't feel bad.
definitely. Mm-hmm. It's hard. It's definitely easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we're not telling you not to be ashamed. It's more that we want you to know that we don't think that you are shameful. Like your
Mm-hmm.
existence is not some like a shameful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Our existence is not a shameful thing.
No,
No.
regardless of what you may have heard from people judging you,
Mm-hmm.
it's not.
Mm-hmm. Also super unnecessary and mean to just
Yeah,
make people
honestly.
feel bad. Like,
So unproductive.
mm-hmm.
It's just demotivating. Like now I
Because
don't want to
culture,
learn
yeah,
more.
culture is supposed to bring people together, right? And then
Yeah,
I don't think it's cool to,
create bigger divides. Like, come on now.
yeah, just because I speak better Mandarin than someone else,
Mm-hmm.
or someone knows some niche Filipino reference that you don't know doesn't mean they're
Mm-hmm.
better than you. They just happened to have been exposed to it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. This is a safe space.
Always. And with that, we shall bring the episode to a close and say thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. We hope that you enjoyed this kind of, I don't know if cozy is the right word, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, me too.
Just like cozy little chat about being a third culture kid. I don't know why, but this voice I'm putting on is very much giving older sister right now.
It is. I feel comforted.
Aw. I can't do this. I'm out.
And that's the outro. Bye, guys.
What was I saying? Oh, I hope you enjoyed this cozier chat that we had about being a third culture kid, kind of breaking down what it is and talking about, like what happens when you're a third culture kid and how that can make you feel, how it made us feel, and what you can do about it.
Mhm.
So feel free to leave a comment or reach out to us in any other way. Tell us about your third culture kid experience. Do you feel like a third culture kid?
Mhm.
Anyone out there that was a reverse third culture kid?
Yeah,
Because
let us know if you want that term to be used more.
yeah, because I feel like there's no way that I don't think that experience that I had is like a super one-of-one experience. I think there's definitely some people, because I mean the Asian bubble exists and we've talked about that, and that's probably even more reverse third culture than I am. So yeah, tell us about what you kind of identify with. If you didn't identify with the episode, what did you think of it? Whether that be because you're just not, you can't be a third culture kid just because it doesn't apply to your life situation. You know anyone that's a third culture kid? Like, do you think what we talked about lines up with what they talked about, if they talked about it at all? Yeah, that's really why we always do this at the end of episodes. I just want to know what people's thoughts are, how they experience things. Because I mean, we're just two people, right? We're just two people plus research and anecdotes.
Yeah, two people talking on the internet using the internet. If you guys like this episode and want to stay connected with us, check out our website in the description. It contains links to our streaming platforms such as Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and more. Follow us for more behind-the-scenes content, announcements, and other random things we decide to put on there.
See you next time.